You see,
And then
the thing I don't like about that idea, though, is that it seems like he's kind of treating POP like it's
I know, it's hard.
I'm getting ready to come.
Good morning, all.
I don't really like people flip-flopping around like that, you know? You don't, you gotta choose. Like, you can't play both teams.
Andy's I need like 8 cups.
I'm like one of those people who's like, I don't need the coffee in my creamer, so I usually don't drink it.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
when you're running, I think that's dumb.
Is that coffee?
I think so.
Full of deliciousness.
It's hard to because I don't know.
Success, ladies.
Me too.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. Because like mine are sleepy and quiet, and then they get in the big kids' rooms and they start
Good
tearing.
morning. Good morning and welcome to
My kids
the South Dakota
children
Center
with
for
massive
Professional Child Maltreatment first annual Child Abuse Prevention Breakfast. My name is Carrie Sanderson. I'm the director for the center. Thank you for choosing to be with us this morning at this early hour. April is a month to recognize many different services and causes for our communities. Today we are celebrating National Child Abuse Prevention Month. CPCL was established in 2017 to build a sustainable solution for South Dakotans to better know about, respond to, and prevent child maltreatment. Together, we are providing safety for our children, creating supports for our families, and securing strength and success for our future. It truly takes a village to surround and love children and families. Research tells us that all of us, no matter our backgrounds or our occupations, can contribute to meaningful prevention efforts. Today, I would like you to rise or raise your hand if you are a CPCM Advisory Board member, an advocate who is a legislator or a public service officer who supports local, statewide, or national efforts to strengthen supports for children and families. If you're involved with mentorship, if you're involved with early learning, if you're involved with community violence prevention, if you like to work with multidisciplinary teams, and this is for everyone, if you love a child or a family member. Please give yourself a round of applause for being a part of the solution. I hope each of you rose your hand this morning. We are thankful for you. We are thankful for the changes that you're bringing to the lives of children and families in South Dakota. We know that each of these efforts are supported by the CDC for violence prevention. If you looked at these efforts that I just listed, you will find them that they work together for ending violence across our communities, including the violence towards children. CPCM and our partners work together to help support data collection efforts in South Dakota. We look at how we can train professionals as they're going through their education, whether they're at a university or a technical school, to become servants out in our public. We look at how we can train multidisciplinary teams across our state. We look at our public awareness efforts, and of course we help build infrastructure for the state. We have so much to be thankful for. As we prepare for breakfast, please join me in prayer. This is Child Abuse Prevention Month, Prayers of the Faithful. Please rise. Our Heavenly Father, we pray that you may fulfill your role as a good shepherd and protect the most vulnerable in your flock. May all civic leaders act in ways that show their commitment to the protection of all, especially children and young people. May all who work with children and young people be vigilant in protecting them from harm. We pray that all families strive to provide safe and nurturing environments for children and young people. May those who have been abused experience Christ's profound love for them and God's healing grace. May God, the merciful Father, bring comfort and healing to victims and survivors of sexual abuse. We pray that those who provide help for the abused may act with wisdom and compassion in their healing ministries. We pray that God may grant those affected by abuse in any way the courage to tell their story and seek healing. And we pray that communities affected by these abuses may find healing and reconciliation. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. As we are served our breakfast today, and welcome to begin the breakfast service, I would like to thank our singers this morning, Luke and Noah, who come to us from Brookings. Please give us a round of applause for our musicians. Luke and Noah both attend high school in Brookings and are preparing for musical careers after high school. We'd like to say a special thanks to our partners in the room. We really appreciate you supporting us and taking a chance with all the things that are going on in our communities today. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge the CPCM staff. You'll notice that I'm using the term CPCM because to say the term Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse over and over again, it's really long. So those of you who are, again, a board member for CPCM or a CPCM staff member, please stand up and we'd like to recognize you today. And as breakfast is presented, we are going to invite up to the stage Representative Tim Reed, who is the CPCM Advisory Board Chair. Thank you.
Well, good morning. It's great to see everybody here this morning. It's just been a pleasure to work with the CPCM. I was active in the legislature on some topics to help with especially sexual abuse with children. And Deb Solhold, who many of you probably know, she's just so fantastic as a legislator, said, hey, you should get involved with this group. It's just been an exciting time to watch. And I really want to thank Carrie. I want to give her a round of applause, please, because of how much she's grown this program and all the great things she's done. So thank you, Carrie. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. This is Nikki Eining, and she's someone from Brookings that I've worked with quite a bit. She's an outpatient therapist for Avera Behavioral Health in Brookings and a licensed social worker who brings a diverse set of experiences and passions to CPCM's advisory board. Vicki has spent over 14 years working in the mental health field with children and families in office, school, and community settings. She has professional experience in clinical mental health, education, research, design, nonprofit leadership, program development, and trauma-informed care practices. Vicki is very passionate, and I don't know, on here it bold it, make it bigger, make it the biggest font on there, to try to be able to emphasize, I've never seen more passion in a person. And her goal, she always tells me, her goal is to work herself out of a job. She does not want to be a therapist all the time. She'd rather prevent. And so it's just been awesome to watch her. She's very passionate about trauma-informed practices along with collaboration to help decrease barriers for youth and families in Brookings County. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family, enjoying nature, cooking, baking, and staying active. Please help me welcome Nikki Eining.
Thanks, you guys. Can you hear me okay in the back? Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. Tim is right. I have gotten the pleasure to spend the last 6 years in Brookings and have gotten to know him through a lot of different work that we do community-wide. If you have not been aware of some of the work Tim is doing at a legislative standpoint, I highly encourage you to take a look because he is doing a lot of work in advocacy for those of us who are survivors of sexual assault, and personally provides me with a lot of hope that we have somebody at the state level advocating for us. So thank you for Tim for doing that. I am here today to speak with you a little bit about my personal story, so I will preface. It is normal when we bring up and go back to some of those trauma stories, you might hear my voice shake. I'm thankful I don't have to hold a microphone because it's normal for me to maybe sweat a little bit. I might have to take a moment and breathe. That would be very normal for me. as I try and recall some of those things, even with the work that I've done over the last 36 years to heal from that. It's also normal, those of you in the room, because we know trauma is prevalent, that 1 in 2 of us have experienced that. If it's difficult and you need to get up and walk around or take a moment, that's okay. I welcome that. Burning some of that adrenaline off is a great way to help ourselves today. So thank you for being here with me. I'm really excited to be here with you all. I'm very passionate about this call to action that all of us can aim in. When we look at learning about trauma, learning about adversity experiences, the impact that that has to our neurobiology, and all the opportunity that we can collectively come together and make a difference when we talk about building resiliency in efforts to look at individuals who have experienced adversity, not as broken, not as hopeless, not as individuals who are their trauma. We have this opportunity to look at our community members, look at our state members, to create a sense of community and belonging. To create opportunities to build skills, to create opportunities for them to see themselves and their capabilities and their potential. And so I'm really grateful for all of you to be here, to come alongside with me to this call to action. I'm here, like Tim said, I'm an outpatient therapist for Vera Behavioral Health. I'm actually located in our rural clinic based in Brookings. I've worn that hat for about 15 years now in some type of aspect, whether that's community mental health in Huron or outpatient in Brookings. I have a little bit of history working in child protection services. I strongly believe everybody should have a little bit of history with child protection services because that really opens your eyes when it comes to working in this behavioral health field. But today I come with a lot of different hats. And so this is my family. I come to you as a mom. I come to you as a daughter, a sister, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, an employee, multiple different hats that I wear that you'll hear me talk about today. But this is my family. My beautiful children, my oldest is 14, Blake, my 8-year-old Sophie. We had 2 miscarriages in between Sophie and then my youngest, Charlie, who's 14 months. This picture's a little old, and so even seeing it today, it's amazing still how much we've grown from this picture. But our biggest baby is Kirby, our dog. So he definitely made the picture. Him and my youngest are the same age, and if you told me dogs were just like toddlers before we got our dog, I would say, oh, no way. My dog is almost more interesting than my toddler. So, and then my husband, Eric, who I wish could be here today because he grounds me, but unfortunately he cannot because he's being a rock star father and helping us get all our children off to everything they need to be at this morning while I'm here with you all today. So to set the stage a little bit, it's important for all of us to kind of have that awareness of adverse childhood experiences. And so when we talk about the ACEs study, so you'll hear me say ACEs a lot, that adverse childhood experiences. We are going to talk today about the research associated with one of the longest study of its kind, where we have learned from Dr. Paletti and Dr. Anna about these 10 types of ACEs. We know a lot of recent research identifies more types of ACEs, right? We know natural disasters, pandemics, racism, bullying, poverty. We know there's a lot of wealth of knowledge that has transpired recently to identify more types of adversities. However, when we talk about some of the data and the research today, we'll be talking about the 10 that's been studied over the last 30 years. What the research tells us is that ACEs are common. 1 in 2 of us have experienced at least one type of ACE. 1 in 4 of us have experienced 2 or more types of ACEs. We know that when we've experienced one, there's an 86% chance we're likely to experience another. And so when we look at the types of ACEs, right, forms of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, when we look at the types of neglect, so whether that's physical or emotional neglect, types of household dysfunctions that we might experience, so mental illness, incarcerated parents, domestic abuse, witnessing a battered mother, parent with a substance abuse or addiction, or divorce or parental separation. We can see quite easily how some of these match up, right? So when we have a parent who has a mental illness, it's very common where we can see some of that physical and emotional neglect. When we have a parent who struggles with addiction, it's very common we might see some of that violence in the home as well, or some of that incarceration, and you'll hear a little bit about my story with that. My ACE score, so when we talk about an ACE score, is simply of these 10, how many have I experienced? My ACE score is 7. And so when we talk today, my hope is to, again, help provide this lens that I am more than my ACE score. And so from an ACEs perspective, I want to share a little bit about some of these photos that I picked for you today. On the top left, you'll see these are my siblings. So my youngest brother, Johnny, my older brother, Sherry, my oldest brother, Bill, and then myself in the pink dress. You'll notice between my youngest brother and my oldest brother, there's 13 years of difference. Between my sister and myself, there's 7. And it's very easy for me to remember that because my sister was 7 when my dad left her family. And so my oldest brother and sister have the same mom. My younger brother and I share the same mom. Unfortunately, they lost their mom when I was in college. I'm still very lucky to have my mother here, and so that is an experience that I have not had to live yet. But the 4 of us, part of our healing journey has been how do we learn to not carry the secrets of our family trauma anymore and try to communicate about them together, how they've impacted us, and how we try to heal our relationships moving forward. The top right is my grandfather and my 2 cousins. I love that picture because myself, I'm definitely the mullet kid. That's me. I'm not sure why my mom thought it was cool for me to have a mullet, but that's me. And then my cousin Kayla, who's the cheeser, her and my daughter are twins, so that looks like Sophie when she was that age. But my grandfather's place was a place I spent most of my time, probably from, obviously I can't recollect when I was very little, but during those first 10 years of my life, my grandparents' home was home I spent quite a lot of time at. When my mom would get the phone calls that my father was incarcerated for different reasons and have to go and get him or bail him out, that's where I would go. If I wasn't able to wake up my father, I would call my grandpa and have him come get me and take me to school. I'd walk to my grandparents if I needed to not be in my home. So my grandfather, their home was a safe place for me to be, and I spent quite a lot of time there. The picture on the bottom middle, so that would be my best friend Nicole. Somehow, the universe is so fun and interesting. We met at the pool one summer, and she had a family history a lot like mine. And so we were very resilient in the fact that we knew well how to figure out where our bikes could take us. And we figured out quick how our bikes could get us together almost every day. And we figured out how to talk our parents into letting us go to the same school the next summer. So some skills that I have gained from my family history is I'm very savvy with being able to figure out logistics of things quickly. And so Nicole and I did that. And we spent a lot of our youth together, and unfortunately she was killed in a car accident when she was 16. I apologize that I get kind of emotional. she was probably the only peer that I had who genuinely knew everything that I was experiencing. One of the really cool things, right, when you get to actually see a peer who's experiencing something similar, you kind of have that aha moment of like, oh, this is not just me. This isn't my only, I'm not the only one experiencing this. And so it becomes safe to communicate about that. If you know anything about children of alcoholics, it is the family secret, right? It is the thing you keep to yourself. It is the thing that you find so many avenues and ways to hide from everybody. My way to hide it was, I will not get into trouble, I will get really good grades, and I will overextend myself in a lot of positive things so that if people think that I'm smart and I'm doing well, they'll just leave me alone and I don't have to tell anybody what's really happening. But Nicole was not that. Nicole was not somebody that I had to hide those things from or kind of make my way through my day. So that was 22 years later, you know, that continues to be a hard thing after what we went through. The research tells us too, all of our adversity responses are different. And so I look at my clock, Darla, because I'm like, you're gonna have to wake me when I need to be done. These are mine. When our neurobiology is impacted, when our neurobiology adapts to try to help us survive, right, we can see these common characteristics of this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. I'm a fawn. I internalized so much, and I struggle to this day with a lot of that shame tape. If you're a Brene Brown fan, you'll know that term. That shame tape plays a lot, and so I've had to learn a lot of skills to really help myself acknowledge it, know it's there, know when it's there, and be able to change that inner dialogue and move forward. I struggled with that ability to really kind of acknowledge and identify that self-worth, being confident in my skills and abilities. That stems from a lot of things that I've heard growing up. I love my parents. They are absolutely wonderful to me, but there are things that I've experienced with my father that even to this day, the running joke is Nikki's the therapist when she should have been the lawyer. So, right, you'll hear me talk a lot later about a lot of radical acceptance. I've had to practice a lot of radical acceptance to get to a good place. But that is part of my response. I struggled with boundaries. I struggled being very passive. That's part of that fawn component, right? Like I was the yes person. Nikki, do this. Yes, I will. Like everything, I could not say no. I struggled with setting boundaries for myself because I was taught and I learned if I say no, if I communicate my feelings, if I'm assertive, the consequence could be bad. And so that was something that was a learned behavior from my experience. And man, did I have a lot of grief. And that looked different throughout my ages, and that's very typical and common of individuals who experience adversity. I can remember blatantly multiple different memories through middle school where I was very angry, right? And that's very normal and common. I was very angry about what was happening. I was very angry that nobody was doing anything to help. I was very confused about why this was being allowed, why this was happening to me. So that grief was something, even to this day sometimes, when we talk about some of that radical acceptance I'll talk about later, it's very normal to have that kind of roller coaster of grief experience of, I see other families or even, right, like everyone's social media kind of allows you to make everything look perfect, or things you see in movies, all the things kind of sometimes just creep up of like, why couldn't I have that, or why didn't that happen to me? And so that grief is very normal and common when we talk about experience of adversity. But everyone's experience is different. These just happen to be some of mine. But I'm here today to talk about that, my ACE score, those stress responses that are common for me. That's not my destiny, and that's not who I am. That doesn't define who I am. I'm here because I want to continue to say over and over and over that I'm not broken, I'm not hopeless, I'm very capable and have a lot of wonderful capabilities about me, and have grown to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of community in a lot of different aspects. However, learning about trauma, learning about adversity, learning about the impact of my neurobiology and what that response is has been absolutely monumental in helping me learn and heal through that. It's just like if I had diabetes, understanding what my body is doing, understanding how I can aid my body in managing this and moving through this and healing has been so monumental in helping me heal and grow and continue to work through a lot of that and change the cycle for my family, for my kids. And we know the research is there. We know it is not just a parent's responsibility to prevent trauma. We know it's all of our responsibility. And so this is the CDC evidence-based framework for preventing and appropriately intervening for adverse childhood experiences. I will tell you one of the greatest ways to find that is with the CPCM Resilient Communities program. And so if you are not familiar with that, please ask Darla, Carrie, or myself, because one of the most exciting things, and why I'm probably the most passionate about being a CPCM advisory board member, is this work right here, and the fact that CPCM is saying, hey, we want to make this able to be easily implemented in communities. We know we can collectively have an impact to prevent and appropriately treat trauma. We know the research is there. We know everyone is capable of doing this. We're going to make it easy for you and help you implement that. So these are mine. So I'm going to talk through a little bit today. So Darla's probably going to cringe while she hears me say this. I will tell you, yes, one caring adult is better than zero. I will also tell you a community of caring adults is life-changing. So I know Darla has the stats in her head, and she's probably like, Nikki, one person will make this percentage change in an individual. But I will tell you from personal experience, and I will tell you multiple times today, it took more than one person to help me heal from my experiences. It took more than one person to help me see myself and believe in myself and my capabilities to move forward and not kind of get stuck in that grief and stuck in that difficulty and let the trauma control me or the grief control me. And so, again, I'm here because all of us together have the opportunity to impact these long-lasting health conditions that are a result of individuals experiencing ACEs. We have the opportunity to come alongside individuals, help them be seen, help them believe in their own potential. And so I put those on the left because I wanted to quickly walk through. I'm looking at my time to be sure. So my family, my mother is wonderful. She worked 2-3 jobs sometimes to help us make sure we had shelter. I remember there were times we did not have a car, and so she did a wonderful job of trying to work diligently to help us have the things that we needed so she could buy that car so she could help us get to where we needed to go when she was not working. Unfortunately, that meant because she was working, there were a lot of times we kind of had to fend for ourselves. However, you know, she did the best that she could trying to help provide for us. When I was a sophomore in high school, August of 2000, that's when Nicole was killed in the car accident. In October, my dad had a brain aneurysm and was hospitalized for 31 days. And I will tell you, it is absolutely monumental, the things that I remember about my mom. I stayed at home to help make sure my brother and we were at school, we got to where we needed to be, because 31 days being out of school, being out of things, that wasn't realistic for us. But when I would go to Sioux Falls and be with my mom, I remember there was a patient waiting room that had kind of been turned into a few spouses who were there constantly for their spouses or partners who were in the intensive care unit. And I remember watching my mom checking in on this older gentleman who was there as his wife was dying. And I remember seeing my mom make this connection and genuinely try and support this individual and help them through that process. And I remember those things, right? I can tell you 2 of the specific times what she said, what she was wearing, those things are monumental. I picked that up. So my mom has taught me a lot about being a caring adult and being there for other people. My neighborhood was a fun one. We had a lot of fun. So my family, the family across the street, I think, is that Jean in the back? So Jean is probably one of my handfuls of moms from her son and I are high school very good friends. And Jean's home was a home I spent a lot of time at. So I did not know Jean was going to be here, so thanks for being here, Jean. But our neighborhood, Jean would attest to, we had quite a fun group. Happened to be the only girl in the neighborhood, which is a whole different dynamic, but across the street, my best friend Josh, we grew up together. Him and his parents did a lot for me. We still communicate to this day. And then it was just house after house. So we had Tom and Jesse, and then across the block, Troy and Brandon, and then down one more block, we had Colin and Ryan. And we did a lot together. And so we really looked out for each other. We were kind of this group of youth who thankfully kept each other out of trouble and got very involved in a lot of weird things of making our own movies, and we did a lot of fun, weird things adolescents should do. Coming up with football games and dunk. We had dunk ball tournaments, and we would make huge boards, and thankfully Jean and Josh's mom allowed us to kind of either take over their basement or their garages and do what we wanted. So I had a very supportive neighborhood of peers, but I also had a very supportive neighborhood of adults. So lots of adults who really looked out for me, who knew I needed money. I paid for all my own things. Everything I owned was because I had a job or 2 jobs and was paying out of my own pocket to have those things for sports or for school or for all the stuff. So I had neighbors who would let me take care of their dogs when they were gone. I had neighbors who let me clean their homes. I had neighbors who saw I needed support and were really there for me when it came to providing a safe space like Jean did, or providing opportunities for me to earn some money, or just letting me know, right, that they were there and they cared. My school was wonderful. I had a lot of invested teachers who saw my potential academically and who saw my potential, just as a human being, and really communicated that a lot, and you'll see a couple examples of that moving forward. Church. I had a very interesting journey with church. So I'm born and raised Catholic. I'm still Catholic to this day. It's a very normal part of that grief experience of mine was kind of why is God letting this happen to me? Why isn't he doing something about it? And so part of my dark spaces and places were a lot of questioning about my religion. And ironically, one of my good friends' mom really kind of took me under her wing. She had no idea I was struggling with that, and said, I think if you want, I really think you should be involved in youth group. I'll come and pick you up every Wednesday. We're going anyways, I'll come and pick you up. It was clear across town from her home. Actually, the church was right across the street from their home. So her kids only had to walk there. But she was like, I'm coming to get you every Wednesday. I'll pick you up and we're going to youth group. And every Wednesday she showed up. And Rhonda, when I got confirmed, Rhonda was actually my sponsor. I asked her to be my sponsor. And to this day, she and I communicate quite a bit about those things. In fact, the moment she found out that I was speaking here today, she called me and we talked a lot about, the purpose of being here today. And so she was one who, again, the universe just tells you sometimes, who took the time and put in extra effort that she did not have to. It could have been easily a thought she had in her mind of, oh yeah, Nikki should go to youth group. Why isn't Nikki going to youth group? Why aren't her parents taking her and dropping her off? Easily could have been those thoughts. And instead, I did not hear any of those things from her. I did not hear any shaming, nothing. I heard, I'm coming to pick you up. Be ready. And she was there every single Wednesday. I had a wonderful employer. Her name was Carol Wiedemann. Jean laughs. I'm going to keep looking at Jean because she knows all these people and gets it. Carol, I actually got this job, our student resource officer, Doug Solom, who is almost my second father, which is a conversation we'll have later. He helped me get this job. So here's a student resource officer, right? His responsibility is essentially just make sure the school isn't causing a ruckus. This is the gentleman who made sure he told me he was the one who found me because he wanted to be the one to tell me about Nicole's accident. He checked on me every day. He helped me find this job where he was personal friends with Carol, and he went, I remember him walking me in that door, and he went to Carol and he said, she is dependable, she will show up for you, and she will work hard, hire her. And she didn't have to do that, she didn't know me, and he didn't have to do that, and he did. One day he showed up at my house, he said, get in the car, I have somebody I want you to meet. And thankfully I trusted him, so I did. And we show up at this coffee shop. And she looked at me and she was like, okay. And ever since then, I will tell you, if I could work there today, I would be there today. It was my favorite job. And I worked there until I had my 8-year-old daughter. I was working full-time at the counseling agency, and I was still working lunches there, and I was working Saturdays there because it was such a fun environment. She was such a wonderful person to work for. And my community, I had a lot of community members who knew that I had the potential to go to school and do something really great with my gift that I had been given, being able to personally relate and wanting to help. And so my community was aware that I would need some support in being able to go to my undergraduate program and complete my Human Development and Family Studies degree. And so I had a lot of community organizations who, yes, I had to kind of go through the rhyme and rhythm of going to service clubs and meeting people and filling out applications, but I pretty much had a free ride to my undergrad degree at SCSU. Go Jacks, who won yesterday, by the way. Terry and I, yes, I hear you, Terry. This is the only year you will hear me rooting for USD because they did wonderfully this year. But that is a razz Terry and I have is the Jacks won last night. And a lot of people wearing blue today. But I had a lot of community members who were involved in those organizations who said, hey Nikki, we know you have done this in Q Club, you've done this in FBLA, we've seen you do this with your student council, we've seen you've invested in our community and we want to invest in you. And so again, right, that messaging of I'm someone worthy of being invested in. My community was telling me that. And then, the state. In my 6th grade English class, Mr. Spillum, he kept after me and was like, why can't you get this? What's going on? Why can't you get this? And I remember our 6th grade English classroom in the old middle school was this huge classroom. And I was like, I don't know, I can't read your writing. You write like crap. You're all over the place on your old chalkboard. Like, give me some notes, get it together, man. And finally, him and I figured out, I can't see. I need glasses. 6th grade. I got to 6th grade, and somehow, I must have rocked it faking that I can't see, because when I went to the eye doctor, the eye doctor laughed at me. He was like, you are blind. You need glasses. And thankfully, my family was able to access Medicaid. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to have glasses. So I will tell you, if Eric was here, he would laugh because I cannot see without my contacts or glasses. Everything is blurry. It's not happening. Without Medicaid, I have no idea what I would have done in my academic career in middle school and high school without being able to see. So that was a game changer for me. I remember in classes, trying to manipulate my eyes to be able to see clearly and not having to figure out how to make myself see the content was huge. And it took Mr. Spillum continuously trying to figure out what is going on for us to figure out, okay, Nikki, you need glasses, you are not doing well. So those are brief conversations about multiple people, but I'm going to try to go through these quick. I know I only have a few more minutes left. Like I said, my grandfather was a very large protective factor for me. He was the most dependable person I knew. There was a lot of mornings I could not get my dad out of bed when I needed to be at school. And so I walked to my grandpa's or I called him, I'm on my way. Every single time he made sure I got to school. My 2 cousins, Jessica and Kayla, are my best friends to this day. We are all 6 months apart. And our we got married 6 months apart. Our kids are all around that age. So we still, in fact, I was just in Kansas 2 weekends ago spending time with them. So we make an effort to support each other, and we make an effort to invest in one another's families and show up. Like I said earlier, my brother, my sister, my younger brother, if you read a lot of research about trauma, man, those sibling relationships, it's hard on us because we just don't understand how to heal together as siblings from these roles that were placed on us for so long. I was the fun, I was the yes person, I was the people pleaser, everyone needs to be okay for us to prevent bad things. My journey has meant setting a lot of boundaries, and I think sometimes my siblings are like, what is this? Who are you? Why are you telling me no? Why are you not doing these things? Why are you telling me I can't do things? I've had to get really good at that. And my youngest brother and I have found our way, and we have a very good relationship. In fact, I spent 45 minutes on the phone with him last night, talking through about being here today and how it's just been an interesting journey. And my oldest brother's survival skill is kind of denying we're all here. He is cordial and he is kind, and if I called him, he'd answer. But he has kind of removed himself from our family unit to help himself survive. And my sister is struggling to kind of find her way through her grief. And so, right, I have to be compassionate about that, but still set my boundaries and learn how do we all try to heal through this as siblings. And it's a journey, but I will tell you, they all show up for my kids when I need them to if I ask them to. I have to be pretty blunt about, like, I need you to be here because your niece or nephews are telling you, hey. So for example, my sister and I haven't talked since Thanksgiving for a boundary that I set pretty firmly with her. But she came to my daughter's dance recital when my daughter called her and said, hey, are you guys coming? And she showed up Sunday. So you have to be grateful for the good things like that we can do for each other. And then those bottom hooligans are my cousins. Generational trauma, right? So part of my healing has been I am compassionate with my father because I now know what he experienced with his parents, which was a lot of really hard things. And so that's true for my cousin's parents as well. We all kind of have our own stories and how that played out for us. But again, part of the piece is we kind of got to hang out and do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. But thankfully, it was all good. It was positive. They're good stories that we like to share. And so here's my mullet still coming back in full force. I don't understand my mom and why bangs were a thing, and then the long back hair. But to this day, all of us are very close. My cousin Brent is full-time National Guard out of Brookings. I'm the godmother of his daughter. My cousin Bubba, who's in the front, he also lives in Brookings. Our basement flooded a year and a half ago. I called him at 4:40 a.m. and said, bring your shop vac, and he showed up in 10 minutes and helped us for 14 hours clean out our basement. And then Kayla and Jessica I talked about already. The top left, that is a letter I found from Mr. Swisher, who was my neighbor, who was the individual I talked about who helped me financially sometimes by making me watch his 2 black labs and run them and water his flowers when him and Diane were gone. And unfortunately, we lost him a couple years ago. But I found this note, ironically, looking for a few pictures for today. And I laughed because of how he wrote it. He wrote it to me and then wrote, like, Nikki Eining. And, like, he's so funny. He was my math teacher, and math was my jam. Like, it was what I was the best at. I loved it. I was good at it. And he continuously told me that. And it's so interesting to read what he wrote. And again, I just found this 2 nights ago. And in the bottom paragraph, he wrote, I always wondered what you were going to say next because you would constantly tell me this work is too hard, but you still did it. And that line, like, ugh, that is trauma, like, summed up in a sentence, right? It is hard, and he saw me struggling, like, this is too hard. And I was constantly in my head, like, I can't do this. It's so hard. But he saw I did it anyways, and he saw I persevered, and he acknowledged it. Like, what an acknowledgement of, like, I see how hard this is for you, and I see you still doing the work. And I see how good you are at the work. And that was him. Like, again, the universe, right? Like, telling you, helping you remember things, helping you remember the good things. That was him. That was our relationship, summed up in this one letter. And even after high school, he liked to razz me because, again, he thought I should have been a mathematician. But I told him all the time, what am I going to do with a math degree? So when he found out I was going for human development, he was like, what are you going to do with a human development degree? And I told him one day, I said, I have to help more people who have experienced what I've experienced. Like that's what I'm being called to do. I could feel that. And so he always told me that I needed to go to school to do something with math, but he very much respectfully supported me in my journey through human development and social work. The top right, Gene Hines' son, Ryan's on there. He's the one looking at me like, what are you guys doing? So yeah, these are my comrades. We're all in different places. You know, I like Chicago, Huron, Arizona, Brookings, Nebraska. We're all over the place, but we still text each other. We still communicate. But they are the reason why I did not go down a very dark path. After Nicole died, after my dad was in the hospital for 31 days, my aunt died from breast cancer that I was really close with that December after October. I remember Josh showing up to my dorm one day. I didn't go to school for a few days in a row. And I didn't show up for basketball practice. And I remember Josh showing up to my door and was like, get dressed, like get out of here, what are you doing? And he did not leave until I got dressed and until I left my house that morning. And that, you know, those were the types of friends that we were. We did that stuff for each other. And that spring, I'm a good golfer. And on the golf team in high school, and I quit. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't really find any purpose anymore. And there he was. I think Terry Broder, who was my golf coach at the time, he knew well enough to go to Josh and say, like, she's messing up. Like, you need to help her out. She's not going to come back from this if you don't kind of get her back in. And so he did. He did. He had quite a few stern conversations with me about, you know, the choices I had at that point and where he saw I was going to go. And just kind of said, you know, we're not going to let you choose this path you're going down. Sorry. So thankfully, they let me rejoin the golf team. And I was able to get back to a good place. Excuse me. And then that bottom one is Rhonda's. That's actually at my Catholicism confirmation that year. And so that was Rhonda who supported me back to my journey with my religion. And right, you gotta kind of learn the devil shows his face in a lot of different ways, and that's been my experience of trying to not let him take me down with him. But I can tell you story after story after story of people who showed up and said, like, Nikki, do not give up on yourself. Like, you are more than this. Like, we see what you're capable of. We see the things you're doing. We see what you can do. We are here for you. And without that, I wouldn't be here today. There's a genuine part of my life where I was just done. And thankfully, I had people like my friends and the student resource officer who had a lot of really monumental conversations with me about The people who are here, we want to keep you safe. We want you to be in a good place. And so I'm grateful for them every day. And that's why I do this work, is because we need those people to continue to show up for everybody. And so we have to continue to send a message, right, that our neurobiology can be rewired. It is biologically possible to heal. We know that. It is not our end story that ACEs happen and we're done. It is just part of the story. And so I have done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of work to build skills around shame resiliency, to help myself feel capable, to have people in my life who have reinforced my worthiness and my skills, who have given me validation when they've seen me do something well. I have learned how to be assertive and to communicate and to set boundaries, to help myself not suffer and to help my family not suffer. I have learned about how to move through my grief and what grief is, and that it's normal. And I've learned to radically accept my family for who they are. I've learned to radically accept other experiences that I've had as a result of my trauma for what they are. I can't change them. They are what they are, but they're not my fault. And what do I want moving forward? What is in my control moving forward? And how do I focus on those things? And I'm deserving and worthy of compassion and treating myself with compassion just like everybody else. I'm equally as deserving of those things. Those all are things that, yes, I showed up to learn these things and I showed up to do the work to have them. Somebody equally showed up to help me with these things. I could not have learned these things without someone equally showing up to help me. We all have the capability and opportunity to do that for people. And when we do that, this is the impact we have. We can prevent all of these things. When we show up and we help invest in people, we can prevent all of these things. The 67% of deaths by suicide is probably the one that I talk about the most, because that's where my heart kind of lies. It is amazing the impact that we can have in this message of you are worthy of being here, and you are worthy of living your life, when we come alongside people and we help them build their capabilities and build their sense of community and build their sense of belonging. That's it. I'm sorry, I know I went over, you guys.
You are worthy.
What's that?
I will say, so Darla is the one who asked me to be here and speak. I've only talked about my personal story one other time in my life. Terry has challenged me to be courageous with my story, so here I am. But the last time I did it was February before COVID. It's amazing how you remember those things before and post-COVID. And that was to a large group of women. And so thanks for being patient with me during all of my snot and tears, because second time, right? Trying to be courageous.
Thank you, Nikki. I have learned so much from Nikki, and I just thank you again for sharing your story. I think what comes clear most for me is the importance of relationships, and the importance, when you think of that, from the family all the way to the state, how people were stepping up and being there to help create resilience and to create the conditions, whether that was through legislation or whether that was just as simple as, giving somebody a chance, telling them, hey, you did great, and specifically noticing what they did. So I hope that when you leave today, you all feel a little bit more inspired to go out and take action to make a difference for our children and our communities. On the table tents, there are some very specific things listed on the back that you can do to take action. One simple thing that we would really like you to do today is to take a selfie, hashtag, SDCPCM, tag us in it so we know that you're here and that you're our partners and are helping us to advocate in this work that sometimes does feel very hard. Another way you can help CPCM is by making a charitable donation through the USD Foundation for our work. So if that's something that you would be interested in doing, you'll find a link on our website. It's sdcpcm.com, or on the flower seed packet that's on your table that we'd like you to take with you. There's also a QR code to do that. So we thank you again so much for being here. Thank you for your advocacy and the work you're doing in your communities. We're very grateful for all of you. So thank you very much. Now, you've already met our staff, and you can probably tell that we're very passionate, we're very committed, we're very dedicated, we're very hardworking. Some of us are very multi-talented. And so before we close, or as our closing piece today, or item today, we're going to invite Susan Smith up, and she's going to sing a song for us. As she's singing, I would like you just to take a few minutes and reflect on all those people that have come alongside you when you were growing up. All those people that showed up and that kept their eye on you. So, here's Susan. Thank you again for being here.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He coming. We so appreciate that you continue to show up for children and families. Have a wonderful day.
Someone stopped photo. Yeah, it was funny that one of them was on there. Yeah, did you see the one with the child?
Yeah.
That's on the bottom of our website.
Oh, really?
Yeah.